On today's episode, we're answering the question, no, we're not, because I'm on the wrong damn outline.
Well, if you're new, the best thing you can do is hire somebody or consult with somebody that actually knows how long it does take to do that. So I think when you look at yourselves, one being a copywriter, the other person being very good at doing marketing projects and everything else in a strategy, consult with people like you and understand, have somebody tell you this is how much work it's going to take, this is how much time it's going to take for your part in order to make this work. And also have that, either have that person who's consulting with you be the accountability person, or have an accountability partner that will keep you on track. If you can do it all on your own, great. But if you can't, then you should definitely be speaking with somebody who can consult you on that, because I can tell you, they're like, I'm sure, and you guys can probably relate too, right from the beginning, there's total miscalculation right from the get-go as to how long things really take.
Yeah, I will completely agree with that 100%, especially when it came to actually producing the podcast in the beginning. We didn't have any clue whatsoever, but we've learned along the way. Can people actually do all of this on their own successfully? Isn't that sort of being a jack of all trades? Should they potentially, like you were saying earlier, should they be sticking to the one thing and having other people be in there to make sure that they can stay on track? Would that be better? Or is it totally okay to be doing all that on their own?
I'm going to say, and this is going to sound really strange saying it, I'm going to say they should 100% get somebody else to help them. And the reason I say that is there's very few reasons why they should do it on their own. Okay. They should do it on their own if they have no way in hell being able to actually hire somebody. Like if they've got no money and they're starting from zero, if they can't afford to hire somebody, then they can try and look up ways online and try and get as much free help as they can and try and do it that way. Right. If you look at an example of, should somebody build their own house, right? No, you shouldn't build your own house. You're not a home builder, right? You don't know how to do electricity. You don't know how to do the plumbing. You don't know how to do the brickwork, the foundation, the whatever, right? You could, I mean, if you really can't afford people, you could, and it's going to take you a long time and it might not turn out right. Actually, it might not even pass code, so it might fail right there. But the truth is you should be doing what you do in life or in business. You should be doing what you do in business, and other people should be taking care of the marketing aspect of it or the strategy aspect of it. Because when you initially go into doing an online business, let's say you're a personal health coach or whatever, you didn't sign up for becoming a chief marketing officer. That's not what you signed. That's not what you got into that business for. You didn't say, I'm going to teach people on health and coach and get their lives back on track with their health. But I'm going to take on the task of becoming, jack of all trades and know marketing, online marketing inside and out, and do it myself. Because it is a big thing all on its own. It will overtake everything that they're doing.
What do you think of those people who emulate the quote unquote successful people, hoping that by doing what they do, that they'll have the same level of success?
I think there's some merit into duplicating some of the strategies that work. But, most of the time if you see somebody who is high level that is succeeding and they're doing a webinar and that webinar has 1,000 people show up to it or 500 people, whatever, which is a big number these days for a webinar, you can't realistically expect to do exactly what they're doing and end up with the same results, because you didn't see what happened the previous 10 years while these people were trying to succeed. You didn't see what they were doing when they were in your spot. You're trying to do what they're doing in their spot. It just doesn't align. It's backwards, right? If you could duplicate what they did day one on your day one, great. But don't try and do what they're doing on day 3,000. Right? You're not going to do it. You're not going to get the same results. They're connected. They have a network. They have followings. It just doesn't work.
They have a team.
Yeah, they have a team. Of course they do. But the strategies, some of them are sound, but a novice person can't translate a very advanced strategy down to a starting point. It might not even be the right one for them. So like, I mean, no, you don't do that. And it's going to be very obvious.
Sure it
That's
will.
another thing, right? I mean, people who are very well known, millions of people might have seen their videos. And then you go and create one and everybody goes, oh yeah, they did just what so-and-so did. Who do they think they are?
Absolutely.
So
So,
it
oh,
becomes
go
a
ahead.
bit laughable.
It does
Oh,
become
so
a bit laughable. Now, you've teased this for a little while now. You talked earlier about your biggest horror story and how you're going to wait till the very end to tell us. Are you ready to tell us about that yet?
yeah, the number one, always with me, it always comes down to niche. Always comes down to niche. Because every time I've seen somebody enter into the business or an online business, no matter what it is they're doing, they think they have an idea, but they do not have the big picture. They do not see everything. They don't see it from every angle. They have a message. It could be a very small message. They don't realize it's small because to them it's, they don't know how big it is compared to what's out there. But they have a message and they think it's accurate. They think it's going to, you know, basically attract the attention of everybody on the internet, and everybody's going to know that they're there, and everybody's going to visit their site or their social media at least once, and I've arrived and here you go. But it's not. And their message, as much as people don't like to admit it, their first message could be very, very vague and they don't even know it. Right. And I was talking about this earlier. um I used the I used an explanation when it had to do with golf, right? Where somebody says, I'm going to start off and I'm going to have like a lead magnet and I'm going to talk about 5 things you could do right now that'll lower your score by 10 points. Well, that's great. Sounds lovely. But you know what? I'm a golfer. I'm actually a golfer. I could name off a dozen things that could actually reduce my score. So that message right there really won't capture my attention, right? It's actually niching down and becoming very, very accurate, right? If somebody said, or somebody offered a lead magnet and they said, here's 5 things Phil Mickelson does in order to improve his short shots with his chipping wedge. Okay, there's a whole lot of things in there that narrows it down. First of all, if you're a golfer, you know who Phil Mickelson is. If you're a really good golfer, you know exactly what your pitching wedge is and you know the troubles you have with it. And you might not personally know 5 things that could help you improve your shot with your pitching wedge. So the ideal client or customer would gravitate towards that because they would feel that there's valuable information in it that they don't even have in their own head or could conceive in their own mind, but they'd like to see it. They not only want it, they'd consume it, right? So using that example, there are people that start their business with a very vague message and they might go down the road 1 year, 2 year, 3 years with that same vague message going sideways or worse, like failing slowly until finally it doesn't work. And the whole time they weren't niched in, and it was that mistake that was in their blind spot. They didn't detect it. They thought it was their marketing strategy. They thought it was the joint ventures that failed them. They thought maybe, oh, I ran out the clock on myself. These are examples that I used in what we were talking about earlier. All the things that went wrong, they thought all those things were the thing. They didn't think their niche was the thing, but it actually was.
So how do you know when you're going in the wrong direction? How do you know if you're just taking time to be successful versus no chance of being successful? Does that make sense?
Well, I can tell you about the no chance of being successful. It's when you can't raise $1. It's when your product or your service can't sell itself, because I think that's the mark of somebody who's successful. If you've got a good reputation as a consultant and you're serving people, if you're doing it well, it will sell itself because word of mouth is a very powerful thing. If you've got a great product and it's helpful to people, or it's entertaining to people, and it serves a purpose, it will sell itself. If you don't, if you really have to push to get one sale of a product, and even then the person isn't totally satisfied, you're failing. Failure is imminent, right? Because that's the difference between a good idea and a bad idea.
Do you think by that, like, I actually really like that example. Do you think by that example, if you have no word of mouth and you're just starting out, you have no social, you have no list, you have no following whatsoever, but you have a really great product, you think, and you try and get it out there and nobody's listening to you just because you have no skill to do that, are you still failing? And what's your next step?
Having no skill can be easily remedied by hiring the right people. And it takes a strong person and a smart person and a wise person to realize that early, right? It's the difference between, I'm going to beat myself up for 3 months, or I'm going to skip the part where I beat myself up for 3 months and I'm going to hire somebody to fix this for me, right?
And
As far as,
a lot of people skip.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of people do
a lot
that.
of people throw themselves a beating for like 3 months. It's like relentless. It's like, yeah, I'm going to still try and do it myself. Oh God, I can't watch. And then the other part of it is, if you're starting out and you have zero, you still have to have patience. I mean, you're not going to be able to judge it off the first person's reaction. That, like, to be accurate about my point, you're still going to have to be patient. You're going to have to give yourself some runway as far as, how long can you pitch this idea before you really know it's not working? And how many people need to see this before I can get an idea, right? Because as much as people like to think that you get on the internet and things just take off, they don't. Even most experienced people, when they're pitching on a webinar, they might close 1 out of 100 people, and that still counts as a success, right? So for the newbie that's coming in, you might have to find a way of having 3,000-4,000 people get a look at your product or service before you start inching forward.
My nostrils were flaring.
No.